Hello everyone, I'm Mrs. Sherman. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. I hope that you will enjoy your home and enjoy whatever you're doing while you're listening today. If you're not ready and if you're not dressed, I would suggest you hang up and go do something with your appearance and come back. I got all dressed up for you today, and I hope that when you see a new video come up, that you will go and get dressed for it and act as though you're coming to the manse to a class. And so, ladies, welcome to the manse, and I am broadcasting from captivity. So, hello, all you captives out there. I am following my own challenge, which I hope you will join me in coming out of the other side of captivity more fit, healthier, happier, more stable, um, and maybe thinner, and just better at what you do, more alert. And you know, in looking at the captives of the Bible, there were several that improved in captivity, so their captors didn't even notice that they were gaining in strength and wisdom. And so let's do that, and let's use our homes for that thing, that very thing. You know, I have an exercise room, and I have a library, and I try to increase in some way. And I think that you can all do that too. Somewhere around here I had the name of a captive that I had not mentioned to you before that surprised his captors because he became more astute during his captivity. We can use the time. And those of you who have been home for a long time realize now that home is everything. We've got to do everything we can to make it a most blessed place. And one of the things I have done that I have told you about before is created a refreshment center in every room with one of those automatic shut-off hot water kettles and all the ingredients to make refreshments. And so just little conveniences here and there in your home can just make it a wonderful place, and you'll start to prefer it rather than somewhere else. After a while, you have more freedom there. So we're learning how much more important home is. If you're new here, would you please stop listening to this on the YouTube channel and click the link that I have provided in the description box and go over to my blog to listen to it, because I provide some photographs to go with it and some other things that I want to tell you that's in the post. And it's really a pleasant atmosphere. You get to look around there and see other things that I have to offer, other things that I have written. So I got dressed up for you today, and I hope that when you see the new videos up that you will take care of your appearance and come to class if you're going to listen for a little while. So before you go to work today, I have my teacup that I want to show you. I had a hard time finding something to go with this, is it a Campbell plaid ladies jacket that I have, so I just chose this little green cup and was given to me by a friend, and I just love it. It's so unique, and it's a Royal Albert. It's very pretty. I will show it to you on the post again. And so, ladies, I hope that you will get started by getting started. And I always feel that getting dressed up and doing something special to your appearance is very helpful. Today I'm going to try to address a lot of what I am speaking about to those who live alone. And the reason for this is those of you who have people around you, who have husbands and children around you, are essentially going to benefit a lot from this message, because essentially we do things alone. We are very much on our own for many things that we do, and we basically live to take care of what God has put before us. You know, it's like Adam and Eve in the garden. Remember, God gave them a job and told them to name the animals and dress the garden. Well, your house is like that. It's like a little Garden of Eden. Why don't you dress it up? Why don't you make it look nice? Why don't you brighten the corners? And so treat yourself well and treat your house well. And I want to talk a little bit about making yourself look good for your home, even if you are alone. And what to wear becomes one of the things. I think you should wear whatever you like and not worry about being too self-conscious about being overly dressed, because this was the problem before captivity, is that out there in the commercial world there seemed to be a sort of frowning on people that were dressed up, and they would ask you, where are you going? Are you going somewhere? Are you going to a party or something? And they would frown on it, and you became even people that loved dressing up became very self-conscious about it and started to become more casual in public. Well, at home you can do whatever you want. As you can see, I'm all dressed up like a Victorian lady, but I would wear an apron over all of this to do my work. And you're two people really. You're the woman that cleans it up and makes it pleasant for the other part of you who needs a place to go that is pleasant. So let's follow this challenge, and in a way I set myself on a course of self-improvement when I decided that I would be a captive. For a while I quit going out, and so your self-improvement begins on a daily set of self-care projects. And of course I want to include character in it because we hear so little of character. And I told you once that I went to public schools when I was growing up, even though I homeschooled my children, and I don't think I ever heard the word character even in history books that described our country and our forefathers, and people that invented things didn't really describe their character. One of the best books that I ever read later on was written by the one that wrote Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. He covered a character quite a bit in that, even though he was teaching his students to come up from a place of life where they were looked after, all their needs, they had a home, all their needs were taken care of, they didn't really have to worry about very much anything else. And so he had to teach them how to come out into the world where they would have to be concerned about certain things, and he would teach them good character. He would teach them always to be true to their word, and he would teach them how to dress and how to be presentable so they could get along in this new world that was coming on, where people would have businesses, and he would teach them how to have a business of their own, but how they would have to live in such a way as they had to handle money properly and also handle their personalities. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when we get to Deuteronomy, because I have described 4 of the first books of the Bible, and I want to get into Deuteronomy because it's so similar to what Booker T. Washington was trying to teach his students from going from one type of life to another. And so to set yourself on a course of self-improvement is so important. So we'll talk about that later after we do a little bit of the housekeeping, when we want to talk about people. So the home. Now that you're all dressed up, you've got your apron on and you're ready to go, the home, I always suggest that you make a list, because a list will help you at least have some kind of a guideline. If you get a little distracted, you can look at your list, and sometimes you can reanalyze the list and say, well, that isn't desperately in need of being done right now. We can cross that off for now and just do what needs to be done. I think I've got about 3 things done today on a list of 100 things, but I just did the things that were most important. And I have emphasized too that if you're alone, there is more of a temptation to neglect your home because you don't think that it matters to anyone. But you're a human being, and I think that you need to have dignity and to have a lovely place to live. And so you start out by brightening all the places that bother you, especially if you live alone. There might be a tendency to have a little anxiety, and so you can analyze your home and what it is in your house that's bothering you and change it. You have the opportunity and the power to do that. Now, the 3 areas that I think are very important in the home are the 3 what I would call the places that have water in them. And that's your laundry room. Keep that all caught up, and because this is where things smell the freshest, is when you clean those. And your kitchen, keep that clean and sparkling clean and sanitary. And then your bathroom. Those 3 things have to be very sanitary, especially in this day and age when everyone's so hyper about bacteria. And you don't have to let your house smell like chemicals, so like cleaning products. Vinegar is very good for shining mirrors, and also for I used it on floors for years. I didn't want anything that the children could poison themselves on, so I kept bleach and cleaning products completely out of my house, and I just used vinegar even in the laundry, and it just kept things running so much better, and it keeps the sinks drains clean, and the smell will go away. And you can also maybe add a drop of some kind of scent that you like, but the smell will go away, and your house won't smell like vinegar. But you just don't want to be intoxicated with a lot of these chemicals. So keep that out of your house if you possibly can. So set your house. A neglected house determines a neglected house can deteriorate. Have you ever thought about that? You know, you think of a house maybe that's just been sitting there for a while and no one's been in it. No one's been wearing anything out. So you walk into that house and you'll notice that it's deteriorating. And it's life inside of a house that keeps it from deteriorating, and also regular care of it and regular repair. And you can't just sit in a house and neglect it. It will start to crumble down around you. I don't know why that is. If nobody's in there, it seems like it wouldn't get messed up, but it deteriorates. So when someone wants to rent a house, they would rather have renters in their house than not in their house, because they know that it keeps it running smoothly, and that it helps. So begin your day at home checking things. So if you want to have a more cheerful place to stay and you are living alone, it's really what's going on in your house is really, really important, because you won't be, now those of us who have other people around, they are the primary importance to us. So we're paying more attention to what their needs are. But when you're alone, the place you live is extremely important. Don't neglect it. Check your windowsills. Check your corners. Check your furniture. Check the shelves in the kitchen. Just keep everything updated and beautiful as though your house were going to be for sale. Just check everything. They say when in real estate that one of the things that can just ruin the sale of a house is seeing some piece of debris somewhere, or something in the sink, or just a spot on the faucet. It's just things like that. So concentrate, if you're alone, concentrate on keeping everything polished and shone and clean. And that will keep your mind active and keep you stable. It's amazing how that goes, you know. I used to think that hard work was just like, oh my goodness, it's so tedious and it's taking up so much time, but it's amazing how it can give you life once you have shone and polished things, and once you have looked after it. Like, I was cleaning a window the other day and discovered that the windowsill was, you know, the paint was chipping on it. So I got out my little can of paint and a little brush, and I just repainted it. It was no big deal. It was just a little section of it. And just keeping up with things is so important. So you can also clean out a box of personal things. If you're living alone, you have more opportunity to look after things. And I know I've got a box that's got my hairbrush in it and all my other things, and I just tend to like toss it in and shut the lid. But now, see, you have, imagine cleaning that out and thinking that's just a tedious job. Once you get that cleaned out, take note of what it did for your brain. Take note of what it did for your mood. The other thing you can do is go through your closet and put your clothes according to color or season or whatever, and check everything. And just little, I remember this from growing up on the homestead in Alaska. We had so little that it was an adventure when someone gave us a box of clothes. They were used, but we enjoyed so much washing them and ironing them and hanging them up in the closet according to color, and just, oh, just fun to have these things. I don't think I could describe it well enough to you. In fact, in my book, Just Breathing the Air, I didn't even mention it, getting boxes of clothes from people, and what fun it was for all of us to have clothes. We were excited about it. Now, of course, clothes, you know, people just kind of throw them in a corner or something. They're not as excited about it, but these were different, and it was before the cotton knits and things like that, and had pretty buttons on them. And so care of your house. will prevent. You know, a neglected house deteriorates, and it's like a neglected mind. You just have to keep up with it. You just have to keep feeding it good things and doing good things to it. And so treat yourself really nice, and especially treat your home nice, because that will be treating you nice. Do something nice for yourself. When you walk into your house, ask yourself, what is it about this place that depresses me, and what corners please me the most, and what do something to please yourself. The other day, I was walking into the living room and I'm thinking, you know, this seems rather dull here. What would I like if I were just new here and just walking in? What would just really make me happy? And I got out all the artificial flowers that I have and put them in a great big box, great big decorative box, and put the box in the middle of the table that was in the dining room. They're just more than necessary, but it's just a big burst of color, and just sat them there because really there are no rules for what you do for yourself at home, just as long as it makes you happy. And one of the things I love to do is watch some of the movies from the 1990s, Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma, and look at the rooms and just see. Of course, it's all staged. I know that they're all probably not real rooms, but I enjoy seeing what's in them and what makes it so effective in the scene to look at. And so a home becomes extremely important if you are living alone. And really don't neglect that, because that is going to feed you back your good mood. It's going to give you back. It's going to reward you in some way. Go through all the books. You have more opportunity to do this than we who always have someone in the house, some relative, some company, something to do that we need to do for someone else. And so treat yourself extremely well if you are living alone. And I think one of the most important things, of course, is to treat yourself like you are a beautiful person. Get yourself dressed up. If you wear makeup, learn to put it on and use it to enhance your healthful, youthful look. And if you don't wear makeup, that's fine. But I think that if you're living alone, you don't have to care so much about what other people prefer in your family or offending anyone. So just go for it. Just do what you really want to do. Now, I did mention a movie the other day that I had watched when I was younger and probably would not recommend it. It wasn't really a very nice movie, but it was Auntie Mame. But what stood out to me when I was really young is that she was undaunted by things that by disappointments and by tragedy, and she would just perk up right away and find something good about life. And she used to say, life is a banquet, but most people are starving to death. So if you're living alone, try to discover that banquet out there and do something great for yourself. I know we don't like to do that, do we? Especially we who have lived a lifetime looking after other people. It just doesn't seem natural, does it, to indulge ourselves in anything? And it doesn't seem natural to take care of ourselves. But remember, you're glorifying God when you do that. You're saying, thank you for my life. So do your very best to look beautiful. Just do your best and treat yourself well. And so I have a list of things that might be very helpful and for living alone, and that is to, of course, your housekeeping. You have an opportunity to make it as clean and neat as you want without having to worry about having other people around or having to work around them. You've got a wonderful opportunity, and to create beauty around you to look at. Now, I knew a lady who was a widow, and every week she went to a flower market. She took me with her one time, and she bought the most beautiful lilies that they had. They were cut lilies, and brought them into her house. Great big huge bouquet of them, and set them there. And I wondered why she did that, but she said that's what she did every week. It also, helped the little woman that was selling the flowers, but it made her very happy to have the scent of them and the beauty of them in the house. And then she had crocheted herself. She had crocheted this wonderful, beautiful bedspread. Haven't seen anything like that in years. Beautiful bedspread. And she had fixed her little place up so beautifully. She cleaned it. She was just wonderful. And so I just admired her so much. And she lived alone, but she was able to be more hospitable because she had more confidence. And so she added that. She added the act of hospitality to her talents, and began to use it. So here are some things that you could possibly do if you're living alone, which if you need to. Now, some of you that aren't living alone might need this too. In fact, I think this whole lesson would help anybody at home, whether you are alone or not, because they're such great things to help build you up and build others up as well. So order something for yourself, from food to little luxuries, where something might come once a day. Something. You can afford it if you're living alone, possibly, and also uh, I have started to order my food, and it's a wonderful luxury. And done every, if I calculate it so that what I order is not going to all come at the same time, then throughout the week I've spaced out the things that come. The other thing that you can do is make every part of your house seem friendly. I've even gotten into closets so that they are cleaned in such a way that there's something sitting there when the doors open that feels welcoming. And it's always good to think of maybe having a guest there. What would they see? And the other thing is to clean as you go. And clean as you go means that you're avoiding an accumulated mess that's eventually going to depress you or make you feel more alone. Is to clean as you go. Whatever you put down, pick it back up. Now, we all have these parts on the cabinet, or maybe the center island that just seems to, you set your keys down there, or you set something there, and it seems to be a magnet for everything else, and pretty soon the top of that thing is so full of stuff. And so if you can train yourself to do something different with that, and I know a lady who just put a bouquet of flowers there because it prevented people from sitting things down. But if you're living alone, you have more control over this, and you are able to have things the way that you want it. And so the other thing you can do is make appointments for yourself. Now, they don't have to be real appointments, but you can make an appointment. Like today, I have an appointment to change a light bulb. But that's such a big deal now, because I have to figure out how to, sometimes with these old houses, you take a light bulb out and part of the light bulb will stick inside, and you've got to go get some needle nose pliers, and you've got to pull that out before you can put another light bulb in. It's just a mess. But I have an appointment set aside a certain amount of time for that activity. The other thing is I have appointments for an art class that on Zoom that I actually do have to be there at that time. Treat yourself to something like that. The other thing is set an appointment for your exercise. And I would really like to emphasize that exercise is not the same as sports. Now, one of the reasons many of us never liked exercise is because we were put in sports when we were in school. And sports did not suit everyone, and some people were really good at it. Some people were very good runners, and they won prizes, and they loved sports. But it's not the same as exercise. And since I've been doing some of the exercises of the stretch exercises and the ones where you just sit in the chair, I realize this is not sports. This is actually body maintenance. This is not running a race. This is body maintenance. And so this is muscle maintenance. And I realize that they make me feel good. Whereas in sports and in some of in the olden days, the exercises you had at school, they didn't really know very much about physical therapy or how the body works, and you would just wear yourself out and not really gain much from it. Whereas these kind of exercises that I have pointed you towards. I use Fabulous 50s, but find one that you like. I chose this because this lady has a good appearance, and she's better dressed than most exercise people, and she's not too young or too thin. She's not very intimidating, and also the exercises are gentle. And I chose, of course, the chair exercises, and now I have graduated to some balancing exercises and some standing exercises, and I don't do them all. And I want to include a link to one of her videos where she explains how to do these exercises when you think, oh, they're too hard or I can't keep up. She tells you how to do it halfway, or she tells you how to at least do something, or one. And so ladies, I hope that you will do that. And so make an appointment. That's really important to teach yourself, to treat yourself well. And I would like to include a little bit today about housework. And one of the things with housework, I know a lot of you've got dressed, and now what do? Well, you make a list of what needs to be done in the house. And I've suggested the 3 most important areas. But if you've got clutter around, if you've got a house that looks like it's not cared for, then that you write some of those things that you need to do on that list. Picking up things, putting them where they belong. And if you hate housework, there is a possibility that you never learned to play house. And that was one of the fun of growing up for me, was learning to play house, and how we played. And we played and played and played it. We didn't really have a playhouse, but we liked to play house. And so then as I became a grown-up, I learned to approach housekeeping with a playhouse mentality. Oh, let's tidy this up. Let's put this here. And what fun this is. Oh, now we're going to have dinner, and let's set the table. And to me, it was all play. And but to other people, they didn't learn to play house. But you know, if you're living alone, you can do that. And who's going to know? Who's going to know that you're playing house and enjoying it? And I would even suggest that in order to be motivated, that you set your table. I know most people are thinking, why should I get all this stuff out, a plate and a fork and a knife, and when I'm just going to have to clean it up? But that's part of the ritual of life, that these movements help your mind so much. Of course, you're going to get them out. You're going to prepare your food rather than putting in a frozen dinner. You're going to prepare your food from fresh things. And this also balances your mind. And everything that you prepare also prepares your senses. You're starting to smell things as you cut and slice and chop and cook. And then your saliva gets to going, and that's part of your digestion. That's part of preparing your digestion. One of the problems of eating out is that you really don't get to experience some of this, and you're just going to eat the food that's ready-made, and you've missed a lot of the digestive process. So get it all ready and cook it, and then eat it, and then clean everything up. And there are some of the time that you have is being used up, but things do not do very well. You know, these teacups that we have, people told us years ago, use them and then wash them in hot water and use them again, and they do better than if they're just sitting in a cabinet. They become brittle, and I didn't really understand that, but I do believe there is something to that. Use your things, and because anything that's neglected will deteriorate. And now, one of the things that I have noticed about being a captive is that I'm no longer competing with the world or out in the world, and I'm starting to think a little bit differently and not get as anxious about what's going on in the news. Because if you look around you, one of the things you can do if you start to get a little worried and you look around you is to think, uh-oh, what's really changed? My car is still out in the driveway. My house is still here. My washing machine is still working. There's food in the kitchen, and see what's going on here. I haven't lost any of my relatives. Everybody's doing well, and there's still plenty of work to do. And so really life has not changed for me except the way that I determined that it's going to change. And believe me, I've got a lot to do that I'd like to change. And it reminds me of, and of course now I'm just delighted. I'm more delighted to find something to do or to talk to someone. I start to look at them differently. They're very special to me. I'm not distracted by media anymore. Now I do pay attention to some of it, and but only the things that give me some kind of idea of how God's working in our lives. And one of the things I loved about homeschooling, I mentioned homeschooling because I homeschooled my kids, and so I'm homeschooling you now, that I became more fit emotionally. And this became for me through homeschooling when I was no longer regulated by the news media, by the state, by others, by coming and going to the school all the time, going and dropping people off and picking people up and going back like for, what is it, 9 months out of the year. And I thought, that's a 12-year sentence. I'm going to be busy for 12 years doing this, and I decided I didn't want to do it. And I homeschooled my children. And what a difference that made in my mind. No longer this dull, repetitive life. We were free to do as we wanted with a day. And we were not regulated anymore. And once I stopped being regulated by the system, the school system, as to what time I would get up and when we would eat and what we would eat and when, and just this constant running around serving this system that was that our children were in. Once we got rid of that, we really were free to. Our minds were working the way we should be working, and we could think a lot more clearly. And so instead of being run by the state and by others, it was motivated mostly by our feeling of responsibility towards God and towards each other. And so if you're living home alone, think about that. Think about what your responsibility towards God is. And remember, it's like Adam in the garden. God gave him a job right there in his home. And your home has to be like that too. So you can do a lot. And it will open your being home and being alone kind of opens your mind to all your possible talents and possible future success in many different things. So make every part of your house friendly. Make yourself look lovely and friendly, and make yourself go with your house. I don't know how many times I've picked up a magazine that was on some kind of beautiful homes, and I'd look through it, and then the owner was pictured sitting there didn't make any effort to look like her home at all. So I think it's really important to represent where we live. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever picked up old photographs in antique stores. Sometimes they'll have old photographs of the house, and then there'll be people standing along the porch or in the house. Their favorite thing was to stand in front of their house and have their picture taken in front of their house. And because that was really a great source of belonging that they had, and a great source of creativity, and I can understand it. I don't know if people do that anymore, have a picture of themselves taken in front of their house that they're so happy with and just feel so at home in. So I'm going to discuss a little bit of character with you. Now, we talked about character before, so let's look at what character is, and I'll read it. First, I want to discuss the Bible books we've been through already and encourage you to know something out of each book so far. So Genesis is generations, and that's where Joseph was, remember? And he had the coat of many colors, and he was taken into captivity. Well, I thought there should be a saying from each book that you should know. And the one that I like the best is when Joseph was reunited with his brothers and in Egypt, and they came and he revealed himself to them. And they were so astonished, and they were so repentant and for selling him into slavery. And he said, "But what you meant for evil, God meant for good." And I thought, what a profound statement. You can, if you're home with children, This is something you can teach them when they think that something is ruined, or a mistake has been made, or their day has been awful, to remember that they can turn it around, and that what someone else meant for evil, God means for good, so it can turn it around into something good. Because all that time that Joseph was in Egypt, he was preparing for possibly rescuing people that were going to go through a famine, and his brothers came to get grain. And so he said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And so anytime, now some of you may have never had a problem being a homemaker and a homeschooler, nobody ever bothered you, but some of you, maybe people were always attacking you in some snide way. And if you look back at their lives, those who were critics didn't really make much of their lives, and those who criticized you, um, you might have used it for something good. And I know it always makes me want to dig my heels in and succeed when someone tells me you can't do that. Nobody does that. I remember once when I was discussing the possibility of going back to the apprentice days, when a young person learned from an older person how to a skill, some kind of a skill, like an apprentice chef or an apprentice housekeeper, and they got under somebody else's tutelage and learned and were paid a small amount while they did that. And as a matter of fact, when I was a teenager and I lived in Tasmania, Australia, there were many young men who were bricklayers, learning to lay bricks and learning to be builders, and it was an apprenticeship. It was quite common back in the 60s down there, and I remember discussing it with someone when I first started homeschooling, and they were asking me, well, what about your kids' careers? They can't have a career if they're not in public school. And I said, well, there are some of us that are thinking apprenticeship might be good, and they were saying, oh, nobody does that. That's just like from the ancient days, And it was very upsetting to have someone talk to me like that, but I decided to dig my heels in and do it. And both my sons got, it wasn't called an apprenticeship, but they were trained, they were taught by someone and then been paid while they worked for these people. And one was in construction, and another was in radio. And so in a way, I won over that, and I just dug my heels in and thought, we can do this. And so what they mean for evil, God means for good, and you can triumph over this. Now I want to read, first let's go through, I went through Genesis. Okay, that's the story of, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. I could do a lot with that sentence, that first sentence, but I won't spend any time here right now doing that. You can use it for so many things. You can use it for science, you can use it for art, you can use it for history, you can use it for grammar and sentence structure, you can use it for spelling, you can use it for speech, you can use it for so many different things, science, everything, and nature studies. But I won't go into detail to it here. And then, of course, there's Adam and Eve, and then there is Abraham and Sarah, and then there was Isaac and Jacob and Esau, and there was also Joseph and his brothers, and there was and then don't forget, before all that there was Noah and the flood, and that was after the creation. So, but I wanted to memorize one sentence from there, and then there's Exodus, and that's where the children of Israel left Egypt. They exited, and and Moses was their leader, and it was the Ten Commandments on the table of stone, and many other things that happened on their trek out of Egypt to a promised land. And then Leviticus was about the tribe of Levi, and Levi was one of the tribes, one of the sons of Jacob, and the priesthood. And Numbers was Numbers, numbering all the tribes as they left Egypt. And Deuteronomy is the next one. Now, I don't have a favorite verse out of Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, um, but I could maybe find them for next time. But Deuteronomy was interesting because what it was a set of rules that the children of Israel would have to follow when they got to prepare them for their new land, prepare them to settle the promised land. And so one of the things that impressed me the most about that book was that if they disobeyed God, they would miss out on entering this promised land. But if they disobeyed God and they repented of it, and they changed their ways, and they were sorry, for they were sorrowful, and wanted to do right, and turned away from that, and turned back to God, that they would get their reward. And so I think that was really, really encouraging. And so that was one of the things that I saw the most of there. But it reminded me of Booker T. Washington's book, because his was up from slavery, and so was Deuteronomy. It's out of slavery and into freedom, and it was instructions on how you're going to live in freedom now. So that's why I like to encourage you that when captivity is over, let's be ready for the to be free. Let's be ready to be more free. Let's be healthier. Let's be stronger. Let's also be more socially capable. How to talk to people, how to treat people. And a lot of you might feel that you're very isolated, but you know, we've got other ways of communicating. We have text, we have Zoom, we have everything like that. And take note of the things that are polite and the way we should. I do mention some of the things, you know, that we should, how we should talk to people so that they're don't feel discouraged, or not to be too blunt, and not to be too, what would I call it, too sharp with people, and what it is that discourages and what it is that builds them up. And so to me, Deuteronomy was very similar to Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington, a wonderful book, because Deuteronomy explains how they're going to have to live now, because now they're no longer traveling all the time, packing up stuff and moving more each day, but now they were going to settle, and it was all these rules about how they were going to have to live. And so we're going to have to learn later on, while we're so cozy in our homes and in captivity, and we can read a book when we want to, and we can even write. I was going to tell you something about reading and writing and literacy while I'm here with you today, and that is, in homeschooling, I had to realize that while reading is so nice and desirable, it's as bad as watching movies all the time, because it's passive, and you can get lost in these books and these mysteries and these stories, and just read and read and read, and it absorbs your mind, and it's wonderful and it's necessary. But part of literacy is also writing. So I think you should balance your reading and your writing. And unfortunately, in public schools, reading is more emphasized, and some writing, but not as creative writing that we want to do, and that is to write as much as you read. And that literacy, writing, is just as important. So when you read, it's passive, and you're letting somebody else tell you the story, and you're passively reading it. But when you write, it's active, and you're using a whole lot more of yourself and of your brain. And even if you just write a sentence or one story or something, that's why I encourage you to get one of those little, you know, these art journals where you paint something and then you write about it, some little thing. At least you're doing some little thing, and it's that's why I like an art class, because it's active, and I like an exercise class because it's active and not passive. While passive is really important, and reading is important, and listening is important too, we need to have a balance of active and passive learning. So I'm going to move on to character. So I'm going to read the character qualities out of 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 6. Make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. Now, those are all character qualities. You could take one of those and start a notebook and make a whole chapter out of each one of them, showing examples of things like virtue, knowledge, self-control. And I told you how to develop self-control was to do something more each day that you didn't think you could do or you didn't like to do, is to go ahead and do it. And one day I decided, we had such terrible weather that I thought, I'm going to have to follow this list no matter whether it shines or not, because most of the time I'm thinking, well, it just doesn't, I'm not in the mood. It's not a very nice day, I won't do this. I decided I was going to do everything on that list no matter what the weather did, and I did it, and I just overcame this tendency to be lazy and to use it as an excuse if the weather wasn't quite right. Now, of course, we have to have some sense and know not to go out when it's too cold or too wet. But I want to continue reading this because it says here, for if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they keep you from being ineffective and unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For whoever lacks these qualities is so nearsighted that he is blind, having forgotten that he was cleansed from his former sins. Therefore, brothers, be all the more diligent to confirm your calling and election, for if you practice these qualities, you will never fall. For in this way there will be richly provided for you an entrance into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Therefore, I intend always to remind you of these qualities, though you know them and are established in the truth that you have. I think it right, as long as I am in this body, to stir you up by the way of reminder, since I know that the putting off of my body will be soon, as our Lord Jesus Christ has made clear to me. And I will make every effort so that after my departure you may be able at any time to recall these things. Well, now all these things, he says, practice them. You know, remember Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice said I could be a better piano player if I had taken the time to practice. So when you practice these things, you know, there's some people that I'll show them Tea Time magazine or something like that, and they'll say, oh, I don't know how to do that, I couldn't do that. But you learn by little tiny steps and by practicing. And so you supplement your faith with virtue and your virtue with knowledge and knowledge with self. So if you want to look this up and make yourself some notes on it on how to gain some of these things, steadfastness was one of them. And look that up and figure that out. And if you've got children at home and you are homeschooling them, have them do a paper for you about steadfastness. Tell them to write about steadfastness and then to speak it to you. What it is, where it comes from, break the word up, find out what the root words are in different languages if necessary, and what it's for and the advantage of it, and who in history or who do they know are example of steadfastness. Just all kinds of different illustrations from it, and you can make quite a lesson with that. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that these are qualities, character qualities that actually make us happier and feel more stable. So self-control is one, responsibility is another one, and diligence is another one. And so these are things that can be worked on no matter how old you are and whether you're alone or not. And there are ways of, the way that you can do this is to overcome some things. And I think sometimes it's important to overcome criticalness, being critical, but not critical of your own work. You can be critical of your own work, but not setting yourself up as some authority to be critical over others all the time. That's a very bad trait to have when you're young, because when you're older, it comes across as being probably more harsh, probably because as you get older, you tend to look a little more harsh. And if you're critical at the same time, it's worse. So criticalness is something you can put away, and that way you start developing the character of self-control. And so, ladies, I hope that you have a wonderful day today and that you can make do something with the time that you spent here and that it was valuable to you. And if you would like to leave a comment, you can on the blog, and you could also email me and tell me if this is a comment you want me to post, and I'll post it for you. My email's on the side there. And so I hope you have a lovely day, and thank you for all you do for me. And if you didn't come, I wouldn't be here. So thank you for that encouragement, and especially thank you for your love. And those of you who have donated, you have helped me tremendously, more than you know. So I'll see you next time. Bye.